Welcome to today's deep dive. Imagine for a second that you stumble across the ultimate foundational blueprint of the universe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the literal source code that explains, why we are here and how we're actually supposed to live.
Right. And you would probably expect to find a revelation like that in some highly secure, sterile laboratory somewhere.
Exactly, or maybe like hidden away on a silent, snow-capped, sacred mountain. But today we're looking at a single piece of visual art.
Yes.
It's a digital file simply titled lastaftermath.jpg, and it drops this ultimate cosmic truth squarely into the middle of a muddy, dark, and totally chaotic war zone.
It is an incredibly jarring juxtaposition, honestly.
Yeah, it really is.
Because we have this single image that basically operates as a highly dense philosophical thesis.
Hmm?
I mean, the artist is forcing you to confront what happens when you take ancient mythological human conflict
Right.
and you physically fuse it with the literal microscopic building blocks of human biology.
It's wild. And if you were looking at this canvas right now, the very first thing that hits you, it actually isn't the biological science or the divine light.
No, it's the weight of it.
Yes, the sheer crushing weight of the bottom frame. You have these two figures in heavy, ornate, ancient-looking armor, and they're seated near a crackling fire on what appears to be a chariot.
Hmm.
And behind them, kind of fading into this thick, dusty gloom, you can just make out the silhouettes of this massive army.
It's very ominous.
Like hundreds, maybe thousands of warriors just standing in the dark.
Well, and the setting there isn't just some generic fantasy combat, It operates as a highly specific cultural and philosophical anchor.
Right, because we're looking at a visual representation of the Bhagavad Gita, the ancient Indian epic.
Exactly.
See, here's where I get hung up on the framing. Because the Gita is about profound spiritual awakening, right? It's about duty, the nature of the self, universal truth.
It is.
So why ground a piece of cosmic spiritual art in the middle of a battlefield poised for mass destruction? I mean, if you want to depict a transcendent moment of clarity, wouldn't a quiet temple make infinitely more sense?
You'd think so. I mean, logically, yes, but that completely misses the philosophical thrust of the Gita, and by extension, the argument this artwork is making.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which is where the Gita takes place, it isn't meant to just be a physical location in ancient history.
Okay.
It's a metaphor for the human condition.
So the heavy, shadowy reality at the bottom of the frame is basically like our baseline.
Right.
It's the high-stress environment of everyday human existence.
Yes, absolutely, because life is inherently filled with impossible choices, moral paralysis, noise, conflict.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Think about Arjuna, the warrior prince in the epic. He is literally paralyzed by the prospect of a devastating war against his own kin. So that dark, grounded battlefield represents the heavy, chaotic reality of all of our everyday struggles.
But, and this is what's so striking, look at the posture of the two armored figures on the chariot.
Right, Arjuna and his charioteer.
Who is the divine figure, Krishna, yeah. They aren't swinging swords.
No, they're not.
They aren't bracing for an attack or anything. They are seated, almost perfectly still, and they're turned completely away from the shadowy army breathing down their necks. They are positioned purely as seekers, just looking upward.
Which is, tactically disastrous in a war zone.
Right, like terrible military strategy.
Terrible. But philosophically,
Yeah.
it's necessary. Because the juxtaposition argues that profound clarity doesn't usually happen when we are perfectly comfortable.
Oh, I see.
True cosmic understanding rarely arrives when you're just sitting in a quiet room with no problems. It often emerges in the aftermath of our deepest struggles, or right in the very center of our darkest, most chaotic moments.
Man, that implies you almost have to hit a crisis point to even bother looking up. Like, if you are comfortable in the temple, you might not actively seek the light. But when there is a literal army in the shadows behind you, the darkness just isn't enough anymore.
Exactly.
The chaos isn't a distraction from the revelation, it's the catalyst for it.
That is a crucial distinction. I mean, they have to look up because looking around only offers shadows and destruction.
Okay, so they look up, and what they are looking at completely breaks the ancient mythology aesthetic of that bottom frame.
It really does. It's a massive shift.
It pivots straight from ancient scripture into modern biological science because the bridge connecting the dirt to the cosmos isn't like a stairway or a beanstalk or a beam of sunlight.
Right.
It is a massive, radiant, double helix DNA strand.
It is a huge visual disruption. The artist scales up the microscopic blueprint of biological life until it becomes this towering cosmic pillar connecting Earth to deep space.
And it's made of pure, sparkling golden light.
Yeah.
And just looking at the way it's drawn, with these intricate, glowing geometric symbols and nodes embedded along the rungs of the genetic ladder.
I couldn't help but think of it as a cosmic fiber optic cable.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Right, like instead of pulsing light to stream data across an ocean, it's downloading the fundamental source code of the universe straight into the minds of the warriors on the battlefield.
The fiber optic analogy works really well because DNA is, at its core, an information storage and transmission system.
Exactly.
It dictates how every living thing is built and how it functions. However, I do want to push back slightly on the idea of it just being a download.
Oh.
Why is that?
Well, a download implies you are receiving something external, right? Like a new file from a distant server.
Sure.
By rendering DNA as this mystical, glowing pillar, the artist is forcing a collision between biology and spirituality that goes much deeper than just receiving new information.
Because we normally treat those as completely separate domains. Like science is the cold, hard mechanics of the body, and spirituality is the abstract philosophy of the mind or the soul.
And they are often viewed as mutually exclusive. But this image argues they are identical. It suggests that spiritual wisdom, the kind of universal order the Gita discusses, isn't just an abstract philosophy.
Okay.
It isn't a set of moral suggestions you learn in a classroom or read in a text. It is structural. It is literally woven into the physical, genetic makeup of the universe.
Wait, let's tease that out for a second, because if spiritual wisdom is biological, if it's coded into our DNA, like our eye color or our height,
Yes.
doesn't that bring up a massive conflict between free will and determinism?
Ah.
I mean, the Gita is heavily focused on choosing to do your duty, but DNA implies you are pre-programmed. How do those two ideas even coexist in this visual?
That is the central tension of the entire piece, really.
Yeah.
You're right that DNA represents a form of biological determinism. You don't choose your genes.
Right, you're stuck with them.
However, in the context of this artwork, the glowing DNA strand acts as a conduit for potential.
Potential.
Yes. It suggests that the capacity for this profound wisdom is pre-installed in us biologically. The code for enlightenment is already there. But just because you have the genetic potential for something doesn't mean it is activated.
Oh. So the code is latent. It's like epigenetics.
Yes.
Where the environment or your choices within that environment dictate which genes actually get expressed.
That is exactly the right parallel to draw.
Wow, okay.
The warriors at the bottom are in an environment of total darkness and conflict. By choosing to turn away from the shadows and look up, by consciously seeking, they are essentially triggering the expression of that cosmic DNA.
So the free will lies in the choice to look.
Precisely. The determinism is the fact that the wisdom they find was already built into their very cells.
Man, that's heavy. So, okay, following that activated fiber optic strand all the way up through this star-filled space, we hit the apex.
The origin point.
Yeah. Sitting at the very top of the DNA ladder is this radiant golden deity figure. And the posture is a classic meditative lotus position, perfectly balanced. And there is just an explosive amount of golden energy radiating outward from this figure, piercing into the deep blues and purples of the cosmos.
And notice the stark contrast in physics here between the top and the bottom of the frame.
Oh, right. The warriors are weighed down by gravity, heavy metal armor, and, well, the immediate physical threat of an army.
Very terrestrial, very heavy.
Extremely.
But the ascendant figure is floating, weightless, and entirely detached from the localized conflict below.
Yeah.
This represents the macrocosm. It is the universal truth, the ultimate source of order, existing far above the petty, chaotic cycles of human history. The warriors, conversely, are the microcosm, trapped in their immediate, messy circumstances.
See, my issue with this kind of depiction is always the detachment.
How do you mean?
It feels almost apathetic, you know? You have this glowing architect of the universe floating in serene perfection while human beings down below are about to slaughter each other in the mud. If the DNA is the bridge between them, what is actually being communicated? Is the deity telling them how to win the war or telling them the war doesn't matter?
Probably neither, actually. It's more about perspective than tactical intervention.
Okay.
The deity isn't an architect micromanaging a battlefield. The deity represents a state of being, the realization of universal interconnectedness.
So it's not giving orders.
No. The message being transmitted down the DNA strand isn't advice on how to defeat the enemy army. It is the sudden, profound understanding that the immediate chaos is temporary and illusory, while the cosmic order is eternal.
So tuning your receiver to that signal doesn't stop the war.
No, it doesn't.
The shadowy army is still there. The threat hasn't vanished, but it completely changes how you experience the war.
Yes. It provides the grounding necessary to act without being consumed by the chaos. The macrocosm and the microcosm are intimately connected through that biological bridge.
That makes a lot of sense.
The universal truth isn't hiding. It is actively broadcasting, step by step, rung by rung, into the earthly realm. The tragedy is that most people are just too busy staring at the shadows to notice the transmission.
Wow. And, you know, the artist actually doesn't leave this entirely up to our visual interpretation.
Right, there's the text.
Down at the very bottom of the frame, below the chariot and the seekers, there is a small inscription, a textual key that forces us to reevaluate everything we just looked at.
What does it say?
The text reads, "What was lost is found. The Gita is not a book. It is the heartbeat of the universe, beating once more.
It is a bold anchor for the piece, and it explicitly confirms our reading of the visual elements while adding a whole new layer of complexity.
Yeah, and when I first read that, the ending really tripped me up.
The more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beating once more. I assumed it was a typo, like a duplication error when the artist was typing out the text.
That's a fair assumption at first glance.
But considering how meticulous every geometric node on that DNA strand is, a clumsy typo just doesn't make sense.
I'd be inclined to agree. Nothing in a piece with this level of visual density is accidental. How would you end up interpreting the repetition?
So I started saying it out loud to see if it was like a formatting thing, and that's when it clicked. More, thump. It's a rhythmic echo. It literally mimics the physical, auditory cadence of a heartbeat. By reading the text, you are forced to vocalize the very biological rhythm the words are describing. Thump, more.
That is a fantastic catch, and it perfectly synthesizes the text with the core visual argument we've been tracking.
So clever.
Let's break down the philosophical implications of that text. First, the declaration. The Gita is not a book.
Which is a highly provocative claim, given that you can go to literally any bookstore in the world and buy a paperback copy of it.
Exactly. It disrupts our fundamental categorization of knowledge. The phrase, "what was lost is found," suggests a rediscovery of ancient wisdom. But the artist is issuing a warning here. Do not mistake this wisdom for static words on a printed page. Do not reduce it to literature or poetry, or just an intellectual exercise.
Because a book is something you can put down.
Right.
You can leave it on a shelf, let it gather dust, or disagree with it. It is entirely external to you.
Precisely. But a heartbeat. A heartbeat is an involuntary biological imperative. It is internal. It is constant.
Yeah.
It sustains you, whether you are consciously thinking about it or not, by replacing the concept of a book with a heartbeat and pairing it with a glowing strand of DNA.
The artwork argues that this cosmic wisdom is a living, pulsating force essential to life itself.
Exactly.
Man, it reframes the entire concept of seeking knowledge. It takes something we usually view as a purely mental pursuit like reading ancient philosophy to become a more centered person and turns it into a biological necessity.
Yes, it grounds it in the physical body.
It's saying that when those warriors look up in the middle of that dark battlefield, they aren't having an intellectual breakthrough, they are having a biological awakening.
They are realizing that the wisdom hasn't been a dusty old text outside of themselves. It has been inside them, coded into their cells, beating all along.
That's incredible.
Knowledge in this framework isn't something external that we acquire through intense study. It is a fundamental reality that we awaken to when the external noise gets loud enough to force us to look inward.
It's the ultimate realization that the universe isn't something you are observing, it's something you are built from.
Very well said.
But that brings us back to the first part of the text. What was lost is found. If this wisdom is a biological heartbeat, if it is literal DNA, how does it get lost in the first place? I mean, you can't misplace your own heartbeat.
Well, you can't misplace it, no.
Okay.
But you can certainly become deaf to it.
Oh, I see.
Think about the modern equivalent of that battlefield. We are constantly surrounded by the noise of our daily lives, the relentless demands, the anxieties, the literal noise of modern technology.
Always.
The shadow army is always there, demanding our attention. When you are entirely focused on the external chaos, the internal rhythm becomes imperceptible. It is lost to your conscious mind.
So it's not missing, it's just drowned out.
Yes.
Finding it doesn't mean going on some grand quest to uncover a hidden artifact. It means sitting still on the chariot, tuning out the army, and finally listening to the rhythm that was already there.
That is the journey the artist is asking the viewer to take. If we synthesize the entire composition, the heavy earthly battlefield, the biological bridge to the DNA, the ascendant figure radiating cosmic light, and that rhythmic pulsating text, we see a remarkably cohesive argument about human existence.
It really is. This single image takes an ancient, war-torn mythology and overlays it with the modern symbol of genetics to argue that ultimate wisdom is not a stagnant historical artifact. It bridges the gap between the mud we stand in and the stars we are made of. It completely changes how you look at both ancient texts and modern science.
It certainly challenges us to reconsider where you look for answers. It suggests that the boundary between the physical sciences and spiritual philosophy is entirely artificial.
Wow.
The macrocosm and the microcosm are one and the same, bound together by the very code of life.
And it proves that if you take the time to deeply interrogate a single evocative source, you can uncover an entire framework for understanding human existence. I mean, we didn't need a stack of research papers today.
No, we didn't.
This one visual thesis delivered a masterclass on its own.
It's a powerful reminder that there is always more to learn, and sometimes the deepest truths are found by simply changing how we look at the information right in front of us.
Well, before you take off your headphones today, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Oh, good.
If this ancient wisdom, this cosmic order, is truly the heartbeat of the universe, if it acts like a latent genetic code that can be lost in the deafening noise of our daily lives and found again when we finally choose to look up, what other fundamental codes of human existence might currently be dormant inside us? What other signals are just waiting in the shadows of our modern battlefields, waiting for a new generation to sit still enough to finally feel the rhythm?